Man, the New York Giants just had a fantastic season, finishing 9-7-1 in Brian Daboll and Joe Shane's first year as GM and head coach. And man, I have no words to say. I am so grateful for what they did here, and I'm looking forward to everything they're going to do in the future. With free agency coming up soon, we'll cover that, but I really want to cover the 2022 NFL draft class. I hope this doesn't take too long because I got a lot of notes here, but I'll try to keep it as short, sweet, and concise as possible. Let's get right into it. What's going on, guys? What's going on, 27 Squad? Welcome back into another video. Today we're going to be going over all the New York Giants 2022 draft picks and what they did and my grade for them, a report card if you will. And that being said, if you guys are enjoying this video, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe for content just like this. And here we go. All right, with the Giants' first pick, obviously the number one pick, 5th overall for the Giants, Kayvon Thibodeaux, pass rusher, edge rusher out of Oregon. You guys can see the stats on the screen. Kayvon played in 14 games. He missed a little bit of time where he was knocked by Randy Moss's son in the knee in that Bengals preseason game. And, you know, it kind of delayed his season a little bit, and then he kind of had to get worked into things. He wound up starting all 14 of his games, but he was on a very limited snap count when he first got into the groove of things as a rookie because they were working him back from injury. But you guys can see his stats here: 49 tackles, 33 solo, 4 sacks, 5 passes defense, 2 forced fumbles, 13 QB hits, 6 tackles for loss, and a touchdown. Kayvon Thibodeaux has been known and kind of crowned himself the closer, and I think that's such a perfect nickname because in 2 of these games, he was able to force a fumble and force a strip sack to help us win the game. You guys know about his first NFL sack against Baltimore, against Lamar Jackson. He strip sacked Lamar Jackson, and that in turn kind of closed the game out for that and gave us the victory. And then obviously later on in the season, the second game against Washington, the strip sack for a touchdown Kayvon Thibodeaux forced, and I think he recovered it himself if I'm not mistaken. Kayvon Thibodeaux didn't get all the sacks in the world. He finished with 4 sacks, but he also had 18 pressures, 10 quarterback knockdowns, and 4 hurries. You can tell that he was very, very pursuant of the quarterback by looking at these stats. But I mean, a lot of it was because he was held, tons of times. No matter who we face, Kayvon Thibodeaux was always held. Now, I'm not going to just sit here and say that Kayvon Thibodeaux is some world beater. I think he's a great rookie. I think he's off to a great start. I'm not going to sit here and say he's one of the best edge rushers in football, but he's well trending on that line, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the future. He's had some consistency issues. Okay, he's not a perfect prospect. Has some consistency issues where he just completely disappears, falls off the face of the planet, and we don't even notice that Kayvon Thibodeaux is actually playing in this game. So that being said, I'm going to give Kayvon Thibodeaux a B. All right, we got to go to our 7th overall pick, Evan Neal, the tackle out of Alabama. He made his transition back to right tackle, something that he's a little familiar with at Alabama. He started off at guard, went to right tackle, and then his final season at Alabama went to left tackle. Now back at right tackle with the New York Giants. He was graded by PFF as the second, I don't know who is the worst tackle in football, but he was graded as the second worst tackle in football, and that is just not promising to look at. I know a lot of people use the Andrew Thomas kind of getaway there, the Andrew Thomas sort of excuse. And listen, Andrew Thomas wasn't the second worst tackle in football last year. I mean, I'm really worried about Evan Neal. This whole season, everybody was asking me in live streams, in videos, are you concerned about Evan Neal? And I've always had to say, hold on, let's see how the season goes. Let's see how Evan Neal performs. And I haven't had a lot of optimism going into his sophomore season. I think Evan Neal was a great tackle, a great prospect coming out. I don't think there was anything we really missed on. I just think he's just having a tough time adjusting to the speed of the NFL and the competition of the NFL. I do think he will rebound. I don't know if he's gonna be the great tackle that a lot of people think he'll be, but we'll see what happens. Andrew Thomas did struggle. People are right about that, but not to the level of degree that Evan Neal did. So that being said, I'm going to give this grade a D-. I know that's just such a bad taste in your mouth, but he was drafted 7th overall, guys. This guy's supposed to be really good. All right, he's supposed to be able to start right off the bat. I know tackle is one of the hardest positions to play in football, but the man allowed 7 sacks. Okay, 7 sacks in his rookie season, and I just hope it doesn't get any worse than that. But these grades can change in later years, and when they help out their careers and stuff like that and play longer in the NFL. So as of right now, I gotta give it a D-. I don't know how anybody can give it anything above like a C-. All right, next up we have Wandale Robinson, wide receiver out of Kentucky, 2nd round pick, 43rd overall. Listen, Wandale Robinson, I always thought he was overdrafted. I like Wandale Robinson. Trust me, I always root for smaller players. You guys know I'm a small football player too. I always root for the smaller guys. Wandale Robinson standing at 5'8", like a $178. I was rooting for this kid. I just think he was well overdrafted. I thought he would be a great value as like a mid-3rd round pick. A guy transitioning from running back to wide receiver, has a lot to look forward to, has a high ceiling, but there may be some limitations to your offense putting him in there because it just doesn't look like he's able to do everything. It seems like he has a set role that he needs to be in, whether that be some sort of option running back out the backfield or a straight up slot receiver that is on those whip routes, short yardage situations, and not really able to beat press. Like, I had a lot of issues with Wandale Robinson, but I thought he was a very intriguing prospect going into it, and looking into more film, I just couldn't get convinced that he was worth a 2nd round pick. But he may prove a lot of people wrong. He only played in 6 games this season. He wound up touring his ACL in the best game of his career, where he cracked 100 yards. He was actually the first 100-yard receiver in a game for the New York Giants in this season. He was the first one to do it. But he played in 6 games, started in 3 of them, was very inconsistent. He played the first game. He had 1 reception, 5 yards, and then got hurt. I think he hurt his ankle. He was out for a couple of games, didn't come back until later. But he's maintained a really good stat line throughout the season. He has 31 receptions on 23 targets, 227 yards, and a touchdown. He has a 74.2% catch rate and only 1 drop. And a game that really shows off a good example of this catch rate stat and the drop rate. He only has 1 drop, 74% catch rate. Look at the Jacksonville game, okay? I know Jacksonville, he didn't really do much per se, but you could see that first 2 drives of the game, Daniel Jones just throwing it to Wandale Robinson, and Wandale just catching over guys double the size of him. Like, he will make sure he lays out for that ball and gets it. You've seen that in his time in Kentucky, where Will Levis is throwing him into a damn gurney, where he's just getting laid out time and time again, but he always comes up with the ball. He's a very, very tough player, and he does not let his height be much of a factor in him losing a battle for the ball. So Wandale Robinson could amount to be a good safety option for a good blanket option for Daniel Jones moving on in the future, or any quarterback who is going to be playing for the Giants while Wandale Robinson is present. But I do like him. I just think he was overdrafted. I gotta give the grade a C. All right, next up is our 3rd round pick, Josh Ezeudu, the interior lineman. Next up is Josh Ezeudu, our 3rd round pick, 67th overall. He's all over the offensive line, but the Giants drafted him as a guard out of North Carolina. You guys can see the stats here: 3 penalties, 3 sacks allowed, 46, a grade of 46 by PFF. He played in 10 games, had 2 starts. Both starts that he was in, he played 100% of the time. That's pretty relevant because that left guard position was being swapped out time and time again. But the times that he did start, he played 100% of those snaps. So that's something that you should look at. I believe Ben Bredesen was hurt for those 2 games, but I could be wrong. But Josh Ezeudu is a project guy. He's a 3rd round pick. I didn't I kind of wanted him to start off, from what I seen on film, I wanted him to start day one, but obviously he was not ready. You guys can watch the film for yourself. He just was not ready to start, and I hopefully he can compete for that position. We drafted him in the 3rd round for a reason. He's a developmental guy. Hopefully he can get those feet moving and start to compete for a starting role at that left guard position that is going to be a problem for us moving forward. Overall, I'm going to give the Josh Ezeudu grade a C, just because it is the 3rd round. Okay, the value is starting to kind of not matter as much. Like, it would be different if we got him at the end of the 2nd or something like that, but we got him in the 3rd. Let's see what happens with that. All right, now we're going to move on to a player that really surprised me. This might be the biggest surprise of this draft class for me. I know a lot of people, like my man Diggy, really like this corner coming out, but Cordale Flott, the cornerback out of LSU, 3rd round pick, 81st overall. I thought he was severely overdrafted. I thought he was like a 5th rounder by what I saw on film, but a lot of people seem to like him, especially because of the last name. What is a Flott? Fear the Flott, just all of that. But Cordale Flott really proved himself this season. Now, obviously, I want to see more of a sample size from him going into next year. I think he'll get that fair share opportunity, but with us signing Fabian Moreau later on in the season, it was just hard for him to get on the field in the first place. But due to injuries like Aaron Robinson going down in week 2, Cordale Flott was able to be thrown into the mix to play against Carolina, to hold his own against DJ Moore, and did a fairly good job at that. He did a lot better than I thought he would. I think he allowed 1 catch where he got beat deep, but other than that, I believe he pass defended against a touchdown for DJ Moore. I mean, he played fairly well. He wasn't bad at all. I really struggled with him being like a man corner. He's like standing at like 175 pounds, but he has a long wingspan, and I think he has a lot of room for improvement, and I'm really excited about it. Now, he only allowed 1 touchdown this season, which I don't know if that's something to really hang your hat on, because like I said, he hasn't played a lot in the NFL, but he's allowed 17 completions out of 27 targets for 191 yards and a touchdown. So take with that what you will, but he didn't have a lot of playing time. I thought he had a very good season for a 3rd round rookie. The best performances I've seen from Cordale Flott this season was obviously the Carolina game, where he was able to just be thrown into the fire week 2 and hold his own. The 2nd Philly game, the last game of the season, where all the starters were out, Cordale Flott held his own against AJ Brown. I mean, I was very excited about that. Then you guys know the Minnesota game in the wildcard playoffs, arguably the best play of that game, where Cordale Flott was able to make that 3rd down stop at man coverage on KJ Osborne and force the incompletion, get to 4th down, and the rest is history. So Cordale Flott played his ass off this season, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the future. He definitely shut me up. I'm going to give him a B. Not because of his play necessarily, it's just that he wasn't thrown into the mix too much. I can't really give the guy an A or A+ or anything like that. He just wasn't on the field as much. But when he was on the field, he was playing pretty damn well. Got to give it a B. All right, now here's one of my favorite guys from this 2022 draft class, the man who was probably the most consistent and the guy who started, it was a big part of every single game that he played, and that is Dane Bellinger, tight end out of San Diego State. He started 11 games, played in 12 of them. He caught 30 of 35 targets, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and even a rushing touchdown. He had a catch rate of 85.7%. That is insane. He had that ugly fumble in that Minnesota game in the regular season, right around the red zone line, and that was unfortunate, but things happen. Dane Bellinger, so far, just into a different stratosphere, exceeded expectations. Yes, he only had 268 yards, but he proved himself as a reliable, consistent tight end. I know it's crazy for me to say, because especially that we're Giants fans, he really reminds me of a young Jason Witten. He just got a guy that is not as fast. He is faster than Jason Witten, runs a better route than Jason Witten, but he's not as fast. That's not what he's known for. But he's reliable. He finds space in the zone. He's a fantastic blocker. This guy is a 3-down tight end. It's not something you really come by that often anymore in the NFL. A lot of these tight ends are coming out as just bigger wide receivers you put closer to the line. They don't block anymore. And Dane Bellinger was arguably our best blocker besides Andrew Thomas in this season. Like, whenever he was run blocking for us on the outside, setting up those crackback blocks in inside zone or those trap plays, like he was always there. He was always consistent, and I loved watching this guy on film. He is a very, very tough player. You guys know he was out for like 5 games because he had an eye injury. He got poked out in the eye by fellow rookie linebacker from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Devin Lloyd, and he was out 5 games, came back and with the visor on and everything, and still balled out. So very, very excited for Daniel Bellinger. He's already getting notoriety by the best tight end in football, Travis Kelce, who gave him a little nod. You guys can see the quote there. So Daniel Bellinger is rising in the NFL. I hope he's just one of those many tight ends that the Giants have had in their history that's just always consistent, always reliable for their quarterback. And I'm excited to see what Daniel Bellinger is going to do. He is going to be my first A of this draft class. A- for Daniel Bellinger, man. Loved it. Okay, and while I was editing this, I forgot that I didn't mention Dane Belton. I forgot all about Dane Belton. I don't know how. He was on my sheet. I just, like, conveniently went right over him. But we got to talk about Dane Belton, one of our 4th round pick, drafted out of Iowa. He had 2 interceptions this year. I believe both of them were in the red zone, which is awesome. And he had 2 fumble recoveries. I believe the first play of the Carolina game, which is his first snap on defense, he had a fumble recovery, which is cool to see. He totaled 31 tackles, 24 of them solo, 7 assisted tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit. Now, Dane Belton is a guy that I didn't like coming out of the draft, man. I had a hard time, trying to figure out where he really belongs on this defense. It really seems like the Giants don't really have a spot for him either, because they stuck him at single high safety the majority of the season, and he just doesn't seem to be getting a good feel of that. So I don't know where they're going to put Dane Belton next year. Maybe he continues to play single high safety if we keep Julian Love and continue to have Xavier McKinney and Julian Love more so in the box, and Xavier McKinney covering tight ends and such, or even running backs out the backfield like he's been doing. So I don't really know where they're gonna put Dane Belton. That's why I had the grade that we gave him. I thought he was a decent pick. I didn't like it in the beginning, but he wanted to be pretty decent. Had some playing time. Started 5 games. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Dane Belton for you. Next, we have one of my personal favorites, King Micah McFadden. Pull up the stats here: 59 tackles, 36 solo, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 6 tackles for loss, and 7 starts out of all 17 games. Listen, all jokes aside, okay, you guys know the whole Micah McFadden meme on this channel and in live streams and on Twitter. You guys know I love me some Micah McFadden. I was just thoroughly impressed from a 5th round guy that we drafted, watching him on film, because to be honest with you, I haven't heard of Micah McFadden. When we drafted him, I looked at film on him and I'm like, damn, I love this guy. I think he's perfect for the Giants. He's obviously a developmental guy, right? He's a 5th round draft pick, but I think he's got the skill set, man. He is extremely reactive, extremely fast on the field, can make one of the best angles to finish on a tackle you'll ever see. Like, he's just an absolute rocket to the ball. A fantastic pass rusher. He was like one of the best graded pass rushers in college football last season, rushing from the linebacker spot, and even as an edge rusher, he was graded well too. He was used a little bit on the edge, back in college. Although Micah McFadden had a time where he was benched, Micah McFadden has times of inconsistency, I still think we got very, very good value for him. We drafted him in the 5th round. He wound up starting before you even knew it, and he was actually making plays on the field. It only took a little bit of time before we got Jalen Smith in here, and then we wound up changing things around. Obviously, we had Gerard Davis who came in, and these guys wound up starting over guys like Tate Crowder, who wound himself being cut, and Micah McFadden staying on a board. I'm really excited to see what Micah McFadden is going to do with fellow draft pick Darrian Beavers, who we'll get to later. But these guys have a really good chance of being a really good yin and yang for this future in years to come. Darrian Beavers being more of the bruising guy, the bigger linebacker, and Micah McFadden being the more smaller, reactive, just head down to the football type guy. Next, we've got DJ Davison. Now, he wound up being out for the year in week 5. He tore his ACL. He was defensive tackle depth. Now, in those times that he was playing, he was barely noticeable. It's hard to really get a gauge of how well he did. We did need, defensive tackle help, as far as depth goes. So, it was fine that we got one in the 5th round here. I can't give this one a grade yet. Just we haven't seen anything from him yet. Next, we have McKethan, the other guard drafted out of UNC. And again, I cannot give a grade on this. He tore his ACL, was out for the season before the season even started. But I love his size. I love his athletic ability for his size. And I think, he could be a guy that could be good depth for this line, offensive line. Can't give it a grade though. However, he hasn't played yet. So let's just be fair to that. And last but not least, Darrian Beavers, inside linebacker out of Cincinnati. He's a guy that is the most anticipated going into next season, just because we haven't gotten a glimpse of him yet, and a lot of people are thinking that he can be our inside linebacker for the future. I like Darrian Beavers a lot. Coming out of Cincinnati, very long, very big linebacker. I mean, it's really rare you see a linebacker like him anymore. He's kind of more of an old school guy. He's not as fast, not as athletic, but man, he can really lay the boom and play well closer to the line of scrimmage. So very excited about him, but again, I can't give it a grade yet because we don't know what he's gonna do. But if I had to give a grade based on value for Darrian Beavers, I gotta give it somewhere around an A-. But I do have to wonder why not only the Giants didn't draft him earlier, but 31 other teams didn't draft him and waited all the way to the 6th to get this guy. That's something I'm waiting to see, but I'm still very excited for Darrian Beavers. Overall, not a lot of production from this draft class, not because they're not good, it's just that a lot of injuries happen. Hopefully these guys can come back healthy, especially the later round picks. You guys know 3 of the last picks, the 3 last picks didn't play any football at all. So with the lack of sample size, it's hard to give a really good grade for this draft class. You just can't do it. So voiding out those guys and just taking all of it together, all these guys together and their grades, I'm going to give it overall a C for the 2022 draft class. I know the Giants had a very good season, but this draft class leaves much to be desired. There were a couple of guys that carried this draft class. You're looking at Kayvon Thibodeaux, Wandale whenever he played, and Cordale Flott, especially Dane Bellinger. But again, even these guys that we talked about didn't give us a very good sample size to even get a good grade on them either. Dane Bellinger, I would love to see this guy get more opportunities. He's never had anything over 42 yards in a game, and that was against Indianapolis, where every player just balled out in that game. I want to see him get more opportunities. Wandale Robinson, I'm waiting to see what he does when he comes back, and I'm waiting for a bounce back season from Neal. So that being said, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you guys grade this draft class? Make sure you guys leave it in the comment section, and go ahead and give you guys his individual grades for each player going down the list. I would love to see what you guys graded the draft class individually. So that being said, guys, I'm Kid Blue. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video.